unlimited drama series.
The words hit me like a slap across the face at our kitchen table on a Tuesday night that changed everything. My family will always come first in every decision. Your second priority, maybe third after my siblings. Sabrina Warren, my wife of 8 years, didn't even look up from her phone as she delivered this verdict. She'd been talking to her mother Vivian for the past hour about another emergency that required our immediate financial intervention. This time, it was $2,000 for Mom's mortgage payment, which apparently couldn't wait until payday. "We haven't discussed this," I said, setting down my fork. The meatloaf I'd made, because Sabrina had been too busy with family drama to cook, suddenly tasted like cardboard. She finally looked at me with those green eyes that had once made my heart skip. Now they were cold as January in Minnesota. "There's nothing to discuss, Eli. Family comes first. That's how it works. I'm Eli Warren, 42 years old, and I've spent the last decade building a successful property management business from nothing. Started with a single rental house I bought with my savings and a prayer. Now I manage 43 properties across 3 counties. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable. Or I was, until I realized I'd been bankrolling the Warren family dysfunction for years. "Good to know where I stand," I said, forcing a smile. "Hell, I'm lucky to even make the podium." Sabrina's phone buzzed again. Her brother Tommy, no doubt. The 38-year-old entrepreneur who'd failed at everything from a food truck to cryptocurrency day trading, always with his hand out for another loan that would definitely be paid back this time. "Don't be dramatic," Sabrina said, already answering the call. "Tommy, what's wrong now?" I sat there watching my wife prioritize everyone else's problems over our marriage, our future, our basic respect for each other. That's when something cold and calculating settled into my chest. If I was second priority, maybe third, then she'd never see first place coming. That night, while Sabrina slept soundly beside me, exhausted from 3 hours of family crisis management, I opened my laptop and got to work. New personal checking account at First National, separate from our joint accounts. New business LLC, properly structured and registered. I'd been thinking about expanding my property management business anyway. Now I had motivation. The next morning, Sabrina was already gone when I woke up. Real estate agents start early, and she had listings to show. I found a note on the kitchen counter. Transferred the $2K to Mom. "Thanks, babe. S." I checked our joint account online. She'd cleaned it out completely, $4,000 gone. Not just the 2 she'd mentioned. There was another 1,000 transferred to Tommy with the memo, "Startup costs." But here's the thing about being underestimated. People stop watching what you do. I'd moved most of our liquid assets to my new accounts 3 days ago, right after that dinner conversation. Sabrina had just stolen from an account I'd already emptied. "Let the real game begin," I said to my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The phone rang. Casey Brennan, my oldest friend and the guy who'd helped me buy my first rental property. He ran a locksmith and security business, and we'd stayed close even after I got married and he got divorced. "Morning, sunshine." Casey's gravelly voice came through the speaker. "You sound different. What's up?" "I need some work done," I said. "Security upgrades, safes, and maybe some surveillance equipment." "For the properties." "For war." Casey was quiet for a moment. "Sabrina?" "Sabrina's family. I just got demoted to third priority in my own marriage." "Ouch. When do we start?" This is why Casey was my friend. No judgment, no lectures about working things out. Just practical support when the chips were down. "Today, and Casey, this stays between us." "Always does, brother. Always does." By noon, I had 3 new rental applications, a meeting scheduled with a commercial property owner, and a plan that would take months to execute properly. Sabrina texted around lunch, "Mom says thanks. You're the best husband ever." I stared at that message for a long time. The best husband ever, ranked third priority. The irony was almost funny. Almost. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my home office. The one room in our house that Sabrina never entered because it was boring business stuff. Installing the last of Casey's security upgrades. Hidden safe behind a false panel. encrypted hard drives, and a surveillance system that would make the NSA jealous. "You're sure about this?" Casey asked, testing the hidden camera he'd mounted in the smoke detector. "Once you start down this road, there's no going back." "She made the choice," I said, filing away bank statements that showed the financial hemorrhaging I'd finally stopped. "I'm just responding to it." The numbers were brutal. Over the past 3 years, Sabrina had funneled nearly $60,000 to her family. Vivian's mortgage payments, Tommy's failed businesses, her sister Rachel's credit card debt, her father Roy's medical bills. Always an emergency, always urgent, always more important than our retirement fund or vacation savings or basic financial security. But the bleeding had stopped. My new LLC was thriving, and every dollar I earned now went into accounts Sabrina didn't know existed. She still had access to our joint checking for household expenses, but I'd moved everything else beyond her reach. "Eli?" Sabrina's voice drifted up from downstairs. "Can you come here for a minute?" I found her in the kitchen, laptop open, surrounded by papers. Her real estate business had been struggling lately. Too much time spent managing family crises, not enough time managing clients. "I need to talk to you about something," she said, not looking up from her screen. "Let me guess. Family emergency?" Now she looked at me and I saw something I hadn't seen before. Desperation. Tommy's restaurant idea fell through. The investors pulled out. The investors being us? We only gave him $15,000. We gave him $15,000. I gave him nothing. I wasn't consulted, remember? Family first, discussion never. Sabrina's face flushed. "Don't be like this. He's my brother. And I'm your husband. Third priority, you said." "I didn't mean—" "You meant exactly what you said." I sat down across from her, keeping my voice calm. "What do you need, Sabrina?" "The restaurant space is still available. Tommy found new investors, but he needs $50,000 for equipment and startup costs. It's a sure thing this time." I almost laughed. Tommy's sure things had cost us a food truck that got repossessed, a cryptocurrency mining operation that lost $8,000 in 2 weeks, and a lawn care business that folded when he realized he was allergic to grass. "No," I said. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no, N-O, not happening." Sabrina's eyes widened. In 8 years of marriage, I'd never flat out refused one of her family requests. I'd complained, I'd argued, but I'd always eventually given in. "He's family," she said, her voice rising. "Your family, your priority, not mine." I pulled out my phone and showed her my banking app, the new accounts she'd never seen. $180,000. My money, my business, my decision. She stared at the screen like I'd just shown her a winning lottery ticket. How did you... Turns out when you're not constantly bailing out other people's bad decisions, money accumulates pretty quickly. That's marital property." "No," I said, standing up. "That's what happens when you declare war and I get to write the rules." The fight that followed was epic. Sabrina screamed about duty and loyalty and what marriage meant. I listened with the detached interest of someone watching a nature documentary about a dying species. When she finally ran out of steam, I said the only thing that mattered: "You told me where I stood. I'm just respecting your priorities." That night, Sabrina slept in the guest room. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling something I hadn't felt in years: control. But control was just the beginning. 2 days later, I found the text messages. I wasn't snooping exactly. Sabrina had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered, and it kept buzzing with notifications. The screen lit up with each message, and I couldn't help but see the name: Chaz. Chaz Daltrey. Sabrina's high school boyfriend, the one who'd gotten away. He'd moved back to town 6 months ago and opened a gym downtown. Sabrina had mentioned running into him a few times, always casually, always innocently. The messages weren't innocent. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Same place as last time? Eli doesn't suspect anything, does he? I stood there in my kitchen, holding my wife's phone, reading evidence of her betrayal, and felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, no surprise. Just cold, calculating satisfaction. If I was third priority in her life, she was about to discover what last place felt like. The Riverside Inn was the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. It sat on the outskirts of town, surrounded by empty lots, and the kind of businesses that thrived in the shadows. Perfect for clandestine meetings between cheating wives and their muscle-bound boyfriends. I sat in my truck across the street, Casey beside me with his laptop and electronic equipment, watching Sabrina's Honda pull into the parking lot. She'd told me she was having dinner with her mother to discuss Roy's upcoming surgery. Another lie in a marriage built on them. "You sure you want to do this?" Casey asked, fingers hovering over his keyboard. "Once we trigger that fire alarm, there's no taking it back." "She made her choice," I said, watching Sabrina hurry toward room 237. "I'm just making sure everyone knows about it." Chaz's ridiculous lifted truck was already there, taking up 2 parking spaces because apparently even his vehicle had an ego problem. The same truck he'd been posting photos of on social media, the one financed with money from his gym that was hemorrhaging members faster than Tommy's businesses failed. "System's hacked," Casey said. "Hotel fire alarm is on my command." "Give them 10 minutes," I said. "I want this to be memorable." While we waited, I thought about the investigation I'd been conducting for the past month. Private detective work wasn't my specialty, but property management had taught me how to research people thoroughly. Chaz Daltrey was a walking disaster, disguised as a success story. The gym was 3 months behind on rent. His truck payment was overdue. He'd been borrowing money from anyone stupid enough to lend it, including 2 of his gym members, who were now asking uncomfortable questions. The golden boy image he projected on Instagram was as fake as his tan. "Time," Casey said. "Do it." The fire alarm at the Riverside Inn was loud enough to wake the dead. Emergency lights started flashing, and within seconds, doors began opening as confused guests stumbled outside in various states of undress. Room 237's door flew open, and Chaz emerged first, shirtless and panicked, looking around wildly. Sabrina appeared a moment later, clutching a bedsheet around herself, her hair disheveled and her face flushed with panic and embarrassment. But here's the beautiful part. 3 of Chaz's gym buddies happened to be driving by at that exact moment. Pure coincidence, if you believed in that sort of thing. They recognized his truck immediately and pulled over to see what was happening. "Holy shit, is that Chaz?" one of them said, loud enough for half the parking lot to hear. "And isn't that the Warren lady, the real estate agent?" "Dude, she's married." Phones came out. Videos started recording. Within minutes, Sabrina's half-naked fire alarm exit would be circulating through every social media group in town. I started my truck and drove away, leaving my cheating wife and her boyfriend to face the consequences of their choices. The next morning, I was in my office when Sabrina burst through the door, her face red with fury and embarrassment. "You did this," she said, slamming the door behind her. "Did what?" I asked, not looking up from my computer. "The fire alarm, the humiliation. You set us up." "I was home watching Netflix," I said calmly. "Check the security cameras if you want." I never left the house. It was true. I'd been home. Casey had handled the technical aspects from his van. Plausible deniability was important when you were playing the long game. "This will ruin me," Sabrina said, her voice breaking. "Everyone's talking about it. The video is everywhere." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on your third priority husband." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "When did you become so cold?" "When you told me exactly where I ranked in your life. I'm just a slow learner." Sabrina left without another word. That afternoon, I heard through the town grapevine that someone had vandalized Chaz's precious truck. Second place, spray painted across the hood in bright red letters, tires slashed, windows broken, the works. I was in a client meeting 30 miles away when it happened. Witnesses could confirm it, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't smile when I heard about it. The war was just beginning, and I was winning every battle. Roy Warren's heart attack happened on a Thursday morning in November. Sabrina got the call while she was showing a house to potential buyers. and one of the few clients who hadn't dropped her after the motel incident became town legend. I was in my office when she called, her voice shaky and desperate. "Eli, I need you to come to the hospital. Dad's in surgery." "I'll be right there," I said, because even in war, some things transcend the battlefield. The hospital waiting room was full of Warrens, all of them looking like their personal ATM had just flatlined. Vivian sat in the corner, dabbing her eyes with tissues while simultaneously working her phone. Tommy paced back and forth, his latest business venture, something involving essential oils, apparently forgotten in the face of real crisis. Rachel, Sabrina's sister, sat quietly for once, her 3 kids mercifully absent. "How is he?" I asked Sabrina. "Touch and go," she said. "The surgery will cost $30,000.
She just gave me a massage! That's it!
Remember, I won't be a fool!
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Even with insurance. The family's trying to figure out how to cover it. I watched the Warren family dynamic play out like a familiar movie. Everyone looked at everyone else, waiting for someone else to step up. Finally, all eyes turned to Sabrina, and by extension, to me. "We'll figure something out," Vivian said, her voice heavy with expectation. "Call your siblings," I said quietly to Sabrina. "The family that comes first." "Eli, please." "They're broke," Tommy exploded. "We gave them everything we had trying to keep the essential oil business afloat." "No," I said, standing up. "You gave them everything. I stopped 6 months ago." The waiting room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the linoleum floor. "What's he talking about?" Vivian asked Sabrina. "Eli's being difficult about money lately," Sabrina said, not meeting anyone's eyes. "Difficult?" I laughed. "I'm being realistic. For 3 years, I funded this family's disasters. Tommy's food truck, Rachel's credit cards, your mortgage payments, Vivian. $60,000 down the drain." "We're family," Rachel said. "That's what family does." "You're Sabrina's family," I said. "And according to her, I'm third priority. So figure it out yourselves." I walked out of that hospital waiting room and didn't look back. 2 weeks later, Roy was home and recovering. The bill mysteriously paid by a loan against Vivian's house that would probably end in foreclosure within a year. Sabrina had stopped speaking to me entirely, communicating only through lawyers. She wanted a divorce, and she wanted half of everything. The first meeting was in Judge Harris's chambers, a wood-paneled room that smelled like old law books and disappointment. Judge Harris was 60-something, gray-haired, and had zero patience for marital drama. "Mrs. Warren is seeking 50% of all marital assets," her lawyer said, sliding papers across the table, "including the property management business and associated real estate holdings." My lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, smiled like a shark scenting blood. "Your Honor, my client has prepared a comprehensive timeline of asset acquisition and the circumstances surrounding it." What followed was the most satisfying hour of my adult life. Patricia laid out everything. Sabrina's family first declaration, the systematic draining of joint accounts, the affair with Chaz, and most importantly, the timeline showing that every major asset had been acquired with funds specifically set aside after Sabrina's priority ranking. Assets acquired with separate funds after explicit declaration of priorities, Judge Harris said, reviewing the bank statements, belong to the acquiring party. Mrs. Warren's claim to 50% is denied. Sabrina's face went white. "But we're married." "Yes," the judge said dryly. "But according to your own statements, your husband was third priority in that marriage. The court sees no reason why he should be first priority in the divorce settlement." Sabrina got the house, which had a mortgage bigger than its current value, and half of our original joint savings, which amounted to about $8,000. Everything else stayed with me. Outside the courthouse, Vivian was waiting with Tommy and Rachel, all of them looking like they'd been hit by a truck. "You can't do this to family," Vivian screamed at me. "You're not my family," I said calmly. "You made that very clear." That's when Chaz decided to make his move. He'd been lurking near his truck, probably waiting for backup that never came. His gym buddies had abandoned him after the motel incident, and his tough guy act was wearing thin. "You think you're smart?" he said, stepping into my path. "You think you can just destroy people's lives?" I think I can defend myself when people try to destroy mine, I said. Chaz was bigger than me, younger and stupider. He grabbed my shirt, pulling me close enough to smell the desperation on his breath. Let go, I said quietly. Or what? I pressed the panic button on my key fob. My truck's alarm started blaring, drawing attention from everyone in the parking lot. Then I pressed the second button Casey had installed, the one that activated my truck's remote start and door locks. Chaz's truck, parked right next to mine, suddenly roared to life and locked itself. The spare key Casey had made months ago during our surveillance operation was still in the ignition. What the hell, Chaz said, releasing me to stare at his truck. Looks like you're locked out, I said. How's it feel to be locked out of everything, Chaz? Welcome to my world. His gym buddies, who'd been filming the whole confrontation, started laughing. By evening, the video of Chaz getting outsmarted by a middle-aged property manager would have more views than his workout tutorials. But the best part came later, when Vivian tried to approach me one more time in the courthouse parking lot. Please, she said, we're desperate. The family's falling apart. I pulled out my phone and showed her the spreadsheet I'd been maintaining for years. Every dollar, every transaction, every emergency payment to the Warren family. $60,000, I said loud enough for the crowd of courthouse observers to hear. That's what I gave your family over 3 years. Money that could have been our retirement, our security, our future. And what did I get in return? We're grateful. You got third priority in my own marriage, I continued. So here's what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful I finally learned where I stood. The crowd was listening now, some of them nodding in understanding. Everyone knew a family like the Warrens, the ones who took and took until there was nothing left to give. Please, Vivian whispered. Call Tommy, I said. He's an entrepreneur, right? Let him figure it out. I walked away from the courthouse that day knowing the war was almost over, but the final battle was yet to come. The Autumn Festival was Millbrook's biggest event of the year. 3 days of food trucks, craft booths, and small-town gossip disguised as community spirit. Main Street was blocked off. Families strolled between vendors, and everyone who was anyone made an appearance. I was there on business, meeting with the festival organizer about next year's vendor insurance requirements. My property management company handled several downtown buildings, and the festival was good for business. What I didn't expect was to see Sabrina working a booth selling homemade jewelry. Her face gaunt and her clothes cheaper than I'd seen her wear in years. The divorce settlement hadn't been kind, and her real estate career had imploded after the motel incident. Word traveled fast in a small town, and cheating wives weren't exactly trusted with major financial transactions. Eli! Tommy Warren appeared at my elbow like a bad penny. He looked terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing a stained t-shirt advertising his latest failed venture. We need to talk. No, we don't, I said, continuing toward the insurance booth. It's about the family, Tommy said, grabbing my arm. About what really happened. Something in his voice made me stop. Tommy was many things. Lazy, irresponsible, delusional about his business prospects. But he wasn't usually manipulative. That was his mother's specialty. What are you talking about? Tommy looked around nervously, then pulled me toward the alley behind Murphy's bar, away from the festival crowd. The money, he said. All those loans, all those emergencies. It wasn't what you think. Enlighten me. Mom knew, Tommy said, his voice barely above a whisper. She knew about Sabrina and Chaz from the beginning. She encouraged it. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What? Mom said Sabrina deserved better than a boring property manager. Said Chaz was more exciting, more fun. She told Sabrina to keep you around for the money, but find happiness elsewhere. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The timing of the family emergencies, always when Sabrina and I were getting along. The way Vivian had pushed for more and more money, bleeding our accounts dry. The constant reinforcement that family came first, that I was an outsider, that my role was to provide, not participate. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Tommy's face crumpled. Because I'm tired of being the family screw-up. Because Mom threw me under the bus when the money stopped coming. She blamed me for all the failed businesses, said, I was the reason you turned against the family. You were the reason. You and your stupid schemes. No, Tommy said desperately. The essential oil thing, the cryptocurrency, even the food truck, those were Mom's ideas. She said you'd never say no to helping me, that I was the perfect way to drain your accounts without you getting suspicious. I stared at him, seeing the Warren family dynamics from an entirely new angle. Vivian hadn't just been taking advantage of my generosity. She'd been systematically destroying my marriage while bleeding me dry. And she'd used her own children as weapons to do it. She set up the motel thing too, Tommy continued. Made sure Chaz's friends would drive by at the right time. She wanted you to catch them, wanted the marriage to end so Sabrina could get half your money in the divorce. But the divorce didn't work out that way. No, and now she's furious. Blames all of us for not playing our parts right. I looked back toward the festival where Sabrina sat alone at her jewelry booth, no customers in sight. Where Vivian held court at the church bake sale, probably spinning some sob story about her ungrateful ex-son-in-law. What do you want from me, Tommy? Nothing, he said. I wanted someone to know the truth. I'm leaving town tomorrow. Got a job in Denver, construction work. I'm done being Mom's pawn. He started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth, Eli, you were good to us. Better than we deserved. That evening, I sat in my home office, staring at the wall, safe that contained 8 years of financial records, and made a decision that would end this war once and for all. I called Patricia Chen, my lawyer. I need you to prepare a press release, I said, and I need you to contact Channel 7's investigative reporter. I have a story for them. What kind of story? The kind that ruins people completely. The next morning, I drove to the property I'd been renovating downtown, a 3-story building that would house my expanded property management office. I'd bought it with money Sabrina never knew existed, renovated it with profits from the business I'd built while she was busy destroying our marriage. I'd invited Sabrina and Chaz to meet me there under the pretense of discussing the final division of assets. What they found instead was a conference room full of reporters, cameras, and a detailed presentation about financial fraud, adultery, and family manipulation spanning 3 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I said as Sabrina and Chaz stood frozen in the doorway, let me tell you about the Warren family business model. What followed was the most thorough public destruction I'd ever witnessed. Every loan, every emergency, every manipulation was laid out with supporting documentation. Bank records, text messages Tommy had provided, even security footage from various locations, showing the coordination between family members. But the real bombshell came when I revealed that Vivian had been running the same scam on 2 other families in town, using her children and grandchildren as props to extract money from generous relatives and family friends. The total amount stolen through emotional manipulation and fraud, I announced, exceeds $200,000 across multiple victims. Sabrina tried to run, but the reporters followed her. Chaz tried to play tough guy, but his threats sounded pathetic on camera. Within hours, the story was trending on social media, picked up by regional news outlets, and spreading through the community like wildfire. But I wasn't done. That evening, as a thunderstorm rolled across Millbrook, I stood on the rooftop of my new building and watched the Warren family empire collapse in real time. Vivian's house, mortgaged to pay for Roy's medical bills, was already in foreclosure proceedings. Now, with the fraud investigation beginning, she'd be lucky to avoid criminal charges. Chaz's gym had been flooded the night before, a burst pipe, according to the insurance investigator. Though the security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned, his insurance company, citing the morality clause in his policy, had already begun dropping coverage. Sabrina's real estate license was under review by the state board. Her remaining clients had fled. Her jewelry booth at the festival had been vandalized by angry townspeople who'd recognized her from the news coverage. And Tommy was on a Greyhound bus to Denver, probably the smartest Warren in 3 generations. As the rain started to fall, I heard footsteps on the rooftop stairs. Sabrina appeared soaked and desperate, followed by Chaz, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. You destroyed us, Sabrina said, her voice barely audible over the thunder. No, I said calmly. You destroyed yourselves. I just made sure everyone knew about it. We can fix this, she pleaded. We can make it right. How? By putting me fourth priority? Fifth? Chaz stepped forward, trying one last time to intimidate me. You think you're so smart? I think I'm done being stupid, I interrupted. Done being used. Done being third priority in my own life. The storm was getting worse, rain lashing the rooftop, lightning illuminating the destruction below. Half the town had gathered in the streets, watching the final act of the Warren family drama play out in public. Please, Sabrina whispered, collapsing to her knees in the rain. I looked down at my wife, my ex-wife, broken and defeated, finally understanding what it felt like to be powerless. Then I looked at Chaz, the muscle-bound coward who'd helped destroy my marriage for his own pathetic gratification. You told me I was third place, I said, my voice carrying over the storm to the crowd below. I just took you out of the game. I turned and walked toward the stairs, leaving them both on that rooftop in the rain, ruined and forgotten. As I reached the door, I heard Sabrina calling my name one last time, but I didn't look back. The war was over. I had won.